Hello everyone, this is Owen from Research is Broken, and right about now, GW is very busy with their advertising on the new Thondia expansion in AOS. But do you know that you can actually play Thondia right now if you are playing in Warcry? So it's all thanks to the last issue of White Dwarf, namely, which is actually for issue 473, and was well known because of its feature on the Celestial Tome of the Beast of Chaos. So follow me as I take a hard look at what playing in Thondia is all about in Warcry. So when you play in Thondia, there is a rule called the Thondian Savagery, and what it does, it adds 1 to toughness to all fighters with a beast rune mark. This rule is always active, just like a twist, but you get the real twist. So really, there is two twists when you play in Thondia. Now, what's unique about playing in this setting is that there are still two charts in the victory condition, but you roll off. If you roll a 1 to 4, you get 6 possible victory conditions, which are very common. But if you roll a 5 to 6, there are 3 rare victory conditions that you and your opponent, can fight against. Now let's examine both types of victory conditions. First, let's go with the common type of victory conditions. The first type is the apex predator. And what happens is that if there is no apex predator, when a fighter kills an enemy fighter, it becomes the apex predator. When a fighter kills an apex predator, though, through an attack action, that fighter becomes the new apex predator. This game will last for 4 rounds, and whichever player has an apex predator will win. Then there's another victory condition, which is the untamed ritual. So players in this game put 3 objective tokens each. Then players gain 1 ritual points for each objective they control. If an enemy fighter is taken down 3 inch within an objective controlled by that other player, you gain 2 ritual points. So the game will last for 4 rounds, and the first player to gain 12 ritual points will win. In the feasting pits, each time a fighter is taken down, you put an objective 1 inch within that taken down fighter. So after a total of 6 objective is placed in the battlefield, so you cannot put more after that. After the 4th round, the player that controls the most objective will win. In the snapper tending, players each put 3 objectives in the battlefield, and at the end of the battle round, players can score 1 tending point for each objective controlled. Then after allocate damage equals to the current round on each fighter within 3 inch of the objective. So the first player to score 12 rounds after 12 tending points after 4 rounds will win. Then there is chasing them down. So you put what this is gonna be one of the most complicated objective actually, because you put one objective in the center of the map, and then every time a fighter makes a move action and reaches 3 inch near the objective, that move action is paused, and then that objective will move 6 inch away from that fighter. So players have 4 rounds to chase that objective, and the first player the first fighter to be near within 1 inch of that objective kills that objective, and the controller of that fighter will win. Then finally in the among the common objective, there is the mold scuttle harvest. So what happens is that you each place 3 objectives in the battlefield, and then those that control an the players that control an objective, I mean, gains 1 mold point. After that, the end of each round, the objective moves 4 inch towards the center. Once an objective is in the center of the map, it is removed from the battlefield, and the game lasts for 4 points, and 4 rounds, and whoever has the most mold points will win. Now, so aside from the common type of victory conditions, there are 3 rare victory condition types. So the first one is the never-ending hunt. What happens is that each player will pick a prey on the enemy warband. They will pick a fighter that will be announced as prey, within the enemy warband. And each time you kill a prey using any action you can do, you pick another fighter that becomes a prey. After 4 rounds, you each count how many prey fighters you've taken down, and whoever has the higher number will win. Finally, there's smoke them out. So what happens in smoke them out is that you roll off, and whoever wins the priority roll decides who is the attacker and who is the defender. So you then alternate placing 3 objectives in the battlefield, and then each time the attacker controls an objective, that objective is then doused, and what happens is that you remove that doused objective. Then the game will last for 4 rounds. So the moment that the objective is down to less than 1 objective, I'm down to less than 2, the attacker will win. While if the objective is 2 or more, after the end of the 4th round, the defender will win. Finally, one of my favorite victory condition is the savage treasures. So what happens is that you each place 3 objectives on the battlefield, and then when you try to gain control of the objective and win, you roll a die, and if the roll result is 1, 2, 3, then the objective becomes savage and deals 3 damage to all fighters within 3 inch of the objective. But if it is not, it becomes a treasure, and there is a total amount of 3 at most treasures in the map, after which all the rest of the objectives will become savage. And the objective here is that after the 4th round, whichever player controls the most treasure will win. So those are the different types of victory conditions. Now, there are also 2 types of twists from 2 different charts, just like the core. So, on the first chart A, let's just say, there is the Lair of the Beast. What happens is that you each pick 1 terrain feature, and whenever a fighter moves towards it or attacks within 3 inch of that terrain feature, on a roll of 1 to 2, that terrain feature will deal 6, my goodness, damage to that fighter. And if that fighter is taken down, then the terrain feature loses the damaging quality. Then there's the Hunter's Hunted. What happens here is that at the end of each battle round, roll a die for each fighter that is within 6 inch of the edge of the battlefield, and if you roll a 1 or 2, that fighter is taken down. Very dangerous. And then never go alone. What happens here is that at the end of each battle round, you roll a die for the fighter that is the farthest from the center of the map, and on a roll of 1 to 5, it is taken down. In case of a tie on how far the fighters are. So in case you and your opponent has a fighter that's both the same distance, then you roll off, and whoever wins the roll off, gets to decide which fighter will be hunted in the Never Go Alone scenario. Then there is hunting animals. So what happens in hunting animals is that the player who won the priority role has a pre-move of 3 inches before the first activation of the first round. Then in alerted danger, it's the opposite. The player who lost the priority role gains a pre-move of 3 inches as well. In the cruel tricks, this is very dangerous for warbands with low health, because what happens is that fighter with even just 1 damage is activated, it immediately receives 1 damage. So those are the twist on chart A. And then on chart B, there is the constricting vine. So what happens is that if a fighter doesn't move or it even falls off, then it takes 1 damage at the end of their activation. Then the tribal spirits is if a fighter is within 1 inch of a terrain feature, they gain +1 attack if they use a melee weapon that is 3 inch or less on a fighter that is within 1 inch near them. So blood in the altar adds 1 to the range 3 attack on fighter with wounds. Finally, there's feeding frenzy, and what happens is if your fighter deals 1 or more damage, remove 1 damage for all friendly fighters 1 inch away from the enemy fighter. But if your fighter takes down an enemy fighter away from it heals equals to the die roll instead of just 1. Finally, there is struggle for dominance. So what happens here is that if there is no alpha and then a fighter takes down a fighter using an attack action, that fighter becomes an alpha. The alpha gains a buff of +1 damage to their normal damage and critical damage. But what happens is that other fighters that try to attack the alpha gains an additional +1 attack. When a fighter takes down an alpha by using their attack action, that fighter also then becomes an alpha. So there's ever going to be only 1 alpha in the battlefield. Then finally, for the twist, there is plan for perfection. And what happens is that players will roll off and the winner gets to decide which of the 2 charts, within the 2 charts, which twist will take into effect. So in this article, there also is not only twists and victory conditions, but for people who play narrative, there is also artifacts for them to pick, and there's even 2 charts for it. So for every chart there is 6 artifacts that they can get, and there are also 6 command traits for people who are playing their narrative campaign. What's my opinion on this article? I think this is a very good article because it adds so much to your game in Warcry. It doesn't matter what type of gameplay your group is playing. So if you're playing open game, narrative, you can use this in your gameplay. And if TOs want to make a new type of gameplay, they can be inspired by what this article has to offer. What I do notice though is that this game is playing in Thondia is very deadly. Fighting type of warbands are gonna have a great time because a lot of the victory condition involves murdering the enemy fighters. But what I do like about it is that it's not just mindless, because it does become tactical even from the apex predator, because you can kill an opponent and then just run away until the time runs out. So there are so many options we found within this article. So if you're intrigued, I would suggest that you hunt down this magazine so that you can get the complete rule set for Thondia. So, if you like my coverage on this article and would like to get more types of videos like this, please tell me what you think through the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you then.